Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here again with another video. Today, big news. We live in interesting times. It was just announced today that after years of lobbying from certain interested parties, the Supreme Court has decided to strike down a federal law which prohibited sports gambling in the United States outside of the state of my state, Nevada. And this was passed through. It was called the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act. It was brought in 1992, and it barred state-authorized sports gambling with very few special exceptions. And as I said, Nevada had an exemption for that because of all of the gambling legislation and infrastructure that was already in place. Las Vegas and all of that. So obviously, this is a big deal. It's a big deal for sports. It's a big deal for esports. We'll get into the esports side in just a moment. I think, first of all, though, let's just take a look at the report. We'll just pause this ad that's going to pop up. This is on ESPN, and you can see here that it says that the Supreme Court ruled 6-3, and now states that want to offer legal sports betting may now do so. New Jersey planning to be the first. Indeed, New Jersey have pretty much said they think they can, because they've been lobbying for this since 2012, they think they'll be able to get something in place as soon as 2 weeks from this ruling, which is going to be very interesting to see how it pans out. You can see as well, Delaware, Mississippi, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia are among the states expected to quickly get into the legal bookmaking game. The court ruled in favor of New Jersey and against the NCAA, NFL, NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball, capping a nearly 6-year legal battle and overturning a federal statute that the sports leagues had adamantly stood by for more than 20 years. This is an interesting quote, actually. Congress can regulate sports gambling directly, but if it elects not to do so, each state is free to act on its own, the court wrote its opinion. Our job is to interpret the law Congress has enacted and decide whether it is consistent with the Constitution. PASPA is not. So this has been completely ruled unconstitutional, even though it stood in place for a long period of time. And the leagues have stood by it. You'll probably ask, well, why would the leagues stand by it when there's been, you can obviously generate revenue from this betting? Well, as I understand it, which is from a very skewed UK perspective, and I've only lived in America relatively for a short period of time, even though I do consider this country my home now. But first of all, especially with the NCAA, there was a lot of worry about corruption and how gambling, illegal gambling, could be used to get athletes that don't get paid to throw results, throw games, engage in a practice called point shaving, where you lose or win by certain amounts to basically keep within the spread. There's all sorts of practices that have gone on, and obviously it's illegal. Now, the NCAA have been very protective about having this what they see as a corrupting influence, come into the space. And certainly as well, there's been numerous journalists that have made fairly outlandish claims that even the NFL, the NBA, that rigged games are going on in that. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I think in an environment where athletes are paid vast amounts of money, you're not going to see match fixing anywhere near as often. So anyway, you can see here, as the case played out over the past 6 years, the NBA and the MLB pivoted their position on expanding legal sports betting and began lobbying on the issue in several states, including Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Missouri, New York, and West Virginia. And then this is interesting because if you've ever heard of a guy called Adam Silver is the NBA commissioner. He's appeared on the TV network I used to work on, TBS, many times, advocating now for the legalization of gambling, despite having been against it previously. And the reason for this is profit, money, because they wanted to have, and again, this is my understanding of it, they wanted to have an agreement with gambling platforms, if it was legalized, that NBA would get a revenue share, a very small percentage, but a small percentage would be huge amounts of money when you consider Nevada last year made a record $4.8 billion on sportsbook gambling. Adam Silver did several very high-profile interviews where he talked about this, and this is his quote. He goes, "We remain in favor of a federal framework that provide a uniform approach to sports gambling in states that choose to permit it, but we will remain active in ongoing discussions with state legislatures. Regardless of the particulars of any future sports betting law, the integrity of our game remains our highest priority." MLB said in a statement that the ruling will have profound effect and that it will continue to seek the proper protections for our sport in partnership with other professional sports. So you can see immediately that these groups are kind of more open to the idea of sports betting around their leagues, but obviously they acknowledge there is an integrity issue that comes with it, and they want to be able to influence the legislation, influence the laws, so they can make sure that games aren't getting fixed, aren't getting thrown, point shaving doesn't occur, things like this. The NFL, the NHL, and the NCAA have been kind of more silent on the issue. The NCAA actually have been the most vocal against it because collegiate athletes in the United States, it's like nothing. It's so unique to America. It basically doesn't really exist in any other form. You've got this highly commercialized space where the athletes themselves are precluded from making any money, even down to having a YouTube channel that they monetize. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people believe that the NCAA and esports isn't going to be compatible. That's a topic for another time. Anyway, we'll take it to the end here. One research firm estimates before the ruling that if the Supreme Court were to strike down PASPA, that's a mouthful, 32 states would likely offer sports betting within 5 years. The American Gaming Association estimates that Americans illegally wager about $150 billion on sports each year. George Freeman, the president and CEO of the American Gaming Association, said in a statement that the court's decision is a victory for the millions of Americans who seek to bet on sports in a safe and regulated manner. Today's ruling makes it possible for states and sovereign tribal nations to give Americans what they want: an open, transparent, and responsible market for sports betting. Through smart, efficient regulation, this new market will protect consumers, preserve the integrity of the games we love, empower law enforcement to fight illegal gambling, and generate new revenue for states, sporting bodies, broadcasters, and many others. So I'll give you my thoughts on it from a sports perspective. We'll segue into the esports talk after that. First up, I've been, especially as a European, the idea of having sports betting banned in a country where I adore the Constitution as a document, a Bill of Rights, the idea of states having independence, in certain issues above a federal level. I think America gets a lot right. I have never understood how a sports betting ban is conducive to personal freedoms. And I always felt it was a very strange situation that existed in America. So that was always my view, and I have always been a big proponent of sports betting, coming from an environment where football or soccer is funded with all these huge sponsorships from sports betting companies, how there is these incredibly robust laws and rules in place for professional players and coaches and managers, everybody who's involved with professional football. For example, just to give you 2 examples, at the highest end of football, if a Premier League footballer wanted to place a bet on a non-league match, that for one, or even one in the lowest division of professional football, to make it more likely a sports book would pick it up, they would be fined and potentially banned from playing the sport. You are not allowed to place a bet at any level of the game if you are involved in the game, and I think that's an excellent rule to have, because obviously you have insider information. Obviously, you can potentially influence outcomes. This is something that I want in esports. I've always said in esports, I don't think professional esports players should be betting on their matches, coaches or managers. I have never placed a bet on a professional match because while I think it's okay for me to advise and say, oh, I would bet this way, this is my prediction, I understand that with that weight, I could make a prediction, skew the betting odds, and then place a bet the opposite way. That would be hugely unethical and corrupt of me to be able to use my influence in that space. So I have never placed a single bet on esports. Never. And I never will. For that reason. So that's at the highest end. At the lowest end in football, there was a story, this is absolutely true, where a bookie took a bet on whether or not a non-league player that was playing in a cup match in the UK would eat a pie at half-time, because obviously the joke is that if you're not a professional footballer, you don't work out, you drink booze, you eat pies, because it's an amateur pursuit for you. And lo and behold, the player did eat a pie. It was caught on camera. And apparently some people had placed bets and made money on this. And there was a corruption investigation to see whether or not he ate the pie to enable his friends, and said, I'm going to eat the pie. I know this sounds ridiculous. I almost want to bring it up just as a deviation, just to show you. Let me see if I can find it for you. Yes, this is it. I know. So it probably sounds ridiculous to many of you. So I will just bring it up because it's important to source this. So, I haven't just lost my marbles. Here it is. This is Wayne Shaw, pie-eating ex-Sutton United goalkeeper Wayne Shaw, fined by the FA. He was fined £375, nothing to be sneezed at for an amateur footballer, but for eating a pie after a bookmaker had offered odds 8-1 that he would eat a pie on camera. And there he is. He's a big lad. He obviously loves a pie. And yes, that's how serious we take it in the United Kingdom. So I have never had an issue with the idea of sports betting. Pretty much everything I've seen leads me to believe that by having legalized betting around an industry, it brings regulation, because these companies do not want to lose money and do not want to have matches being fixed or any bullshit going on, because that harms their bottom line. On top of that, it brings vast amounts of money, because the thing about the gambling industry as a whole is it's one of the industries where everybody that participates in it knows they're basically throwing money away. Think about it. When you place a bet, do you really expect to win? Well, no. I can use my skill and my judgment, but generally I'm going to lose more than I win. And that has to be the rule for the vast majority of people, because if that wasn't the case, then everyone would be betting and these companies would be losing money and they'd be out of business, and therefore it wouldn't exist. So it's a business where people go into it pretty much knowing they're going to lose money. Any form of corruption that interferes with that, anything that prevents these companies making this huge rake, this huge profit on that premise, that's getting shut down. We're talking billions. So on top of that, it gives a new excitement for the fan. There's no getting away from that. That when you watch a game, when you've got £20 riding on it and it's an outside bet, or you go down to the bookies and you put on an accumulator and you've got 9 of the 10 results you need to win hundreds of thousands, and that last game is coming, trust me, that shit is why people do it. It's a rush, and of course if you've played the percentages and done your homework and got it right, you can win big. So obviously, it gives fans a new form of excitement, but the key thing for me is it's a revenue generator in the space. Sponsorships, in particular, advertising, all the marketing budget. These companies can afford to put so much in because their business model is pretty much all profit. Anyway, how does this link us to esports, Richard? Well, I want you to think about everything I've just said. Certainly, with esports now being recognized in Nevada for their official sports book, you can place bets here on individual outcomes of esports matches. Now it does open this possibility to having legalized, regulated gambling in America for esports. Let that sit with you. Because I've seen a lot of people today tweeting, oh, this is terrible. Think of all the problems we had with just skins betting. Yes. Why do you think we had problems with skins betting? Could it be that it was a form of non-regulated, easily manipulated cryptocurrency that was not covered by any laws? This is why everybody went and did that gold rush for skins betting. They went and did that because it wasn't regulated, it wasn't covered. Nobody, fuck it, we even know examples where people rigged the outcome. They stole your skins, and you can't do fuck all about it, can you? We got to hope one of these class action suits come in. Never happening. It's done. They got away with the money. Until the Fed decide to investigate or some sort of retroactive law is applied, these people rinsed you and got away with it. And that's that. And then they went into case openings, and now it's ICOs and crypto. They will just keep moving on to the next unregulated scam. And that's the key word, unregulated. Skins betting was a disaster. It sure led to a lot of sudden growth for CS especially, but it's not only CS that, has skins, but certainly it was Counter-Strike that had all the skins casinos, or predominantly so. But it's the fact it's unregulated. This is the issue. These things aren't recognized as money. There's no age check for having a skin. These sites knew that and were predators and offered you the opportunity to win more skins and win more knives to kids who didn't have the mental wherewithal to realize that that is a lie. And because there's no regulations in place, these sites can just fuck you, hoover your skins out your account, and then close. And that's that. You can't do anything. There is no body to go to get skins back. You can't go to Valve. You can't go to anybody. You can't report it as a theft. It's not property. So this was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. Anything that gets us away from skins betting is good. Fact. Absolute fact. And what we've needed for a long period of time, what we desperately needed was the companies that were like offering fantasy, like Alpha Draft and DraftKings and FanDuel and whatever it is. We needed them to be able to offer esports betting for cash that was regulated, protected. No, never. It couldn't happen because of these laws. Now they've been repealed. It might take a while in some states, but when New Jersey say we can get into this as early as 2 weeks, there's no reason to think they won't recognize esports on that sports book. Might need to do some homework, might take a little bit longer than 2 weeks, but it's coming, and it's a good thing it's coming. The other problem you've got is, right, cash betting is so much more easily traceable, and serious gambling websites, when you go to them and tell them this match is being fixed, believe me, they take it seriously. For actual money, yeah, fuck yeah. They will happily rock the boat because it's money getting hoovered out of their profit margin. So now that we've got regulated sports books coming to esports, brilliant. Think about it. There's going to be, sure, there might be more people attempting, okay, to fix matches in the short term. Let's say that happens. I don't think that's true, but let's say it is. Let's say now that the rewards are bigger, more people in the lower tier attempt to fix matches, they're now more likely to get caught. And on top of that, with money and attempts to basically pervert the outcome of a game, no longer will it be a slap on the wrist from Valve. It'll be jail. It'll actually be fucking jail time. Because any attempt to pervert the outcome of a game to win bets is covered by American laws, will be covered now. So, yeah, go ahead. Fix those matches, kids. If you think getting banned from a major is something to be afraid of, when you're doing 6 fucking years or whatever it is, because you rigged outcomes of matches, yeah, don't say you weren't warned. So, honestly, again, I see it as a good thing. There was a couple other points I wanted to make just specifically for esports, moving away from the idea of skins betting. And that is just that it's a real big win for us because there are so many sponsors that want to come into this space, want to come in and support esports, but as we know, the Americans owners, they want to have franchises because they want guaranteed investment returns. So the people who buy the organizations don't want to invest in an uncertain system where it's an open circuit and there's relegation. People want certainty. And there was so many people holding back from investing in esports because they weren't sure where the money was going to come from. Riot Games in LCS, they had a rule that, and I think that might be getting repealed, that where it certainly will off the back of this, I imagine, where they said you can't have gambling sponsorships. I think Overwatch League has something similar because of this stigma and the legality surrounding Overwatch. Now, these sponsors wanted to sponsor individual teams, like you see Betway sponsoring Ninjas in Pajamas. Now they can do that in America. Now these organizations that maybe were holding back from investing because they needed a franchise model to feel good about their investment, these sponsorships for leagues, for teams, are going to be fucking insane. And the amount of money that you can make now by offering an esports book is going to be insane. This is going to be a huge financial boon for esports over the next 5 years. We were already a growth industry. Now we have what is going to be a growth industry wanting to invest in our already growth industry. You do the fucking math. So I think this is a brilliant thing for esports, even though I've seen a lot of people who are concerned. And I also hope that what's going to happen is esports organizations that understand the lay of the land are going to be given extra prominence to work with these new gambling companies that come into the scene. I'm thinking in particular of ESIC, the Esports Integrity Coalition. They've already tweeted a little bit about it today. They have some fantastic initiatives. Whatever you think about them, they certainly are trying to do the right thing by esports, and I hope that they are recognized by these new gambling companies and people enter into partnerships with them, because these people, ESIC, conduct investigations into match fixing, share information about match fixing, that they punish players for match fixing. They get leagues to recognize their authority and punish players when they step outside of these boundaries. So yes, this has so much potential for the business. Literally, this could be this new golden wave. We were all worried. At a time, the timing's brilliant, because at a time where Valve have made these changes to the skins trade, where everyone was going, oh no, it's over, it's all over, there's a 7-day trade hold, look how the player numbers are down and all of this. Well, certainly now when it comes to viewership, especially if we get some form of integration going on with these betting companies, now there's a whole new audience coming to esports. People who just want to have a flutter. People who just want to place a bet. If you think that's not happening, I mean, we already saw a transition in Counter-Strike where I think, sure, player numbers might be down. Only peak player numbers, by the way, not unique player numbers, but peak player numbers might be down to a significant amount. Imagine now, we're transitioning towards more people watching the game than playing the game, right? And I think that's fucking great. Sign me up to that world, because the people who want to watch Counter-Strike in particular, but any esports, just to get into it, learn what it is, maybe place a bet, that's a good thing for us. That's a good thing. All the people who were using the argument about, skins, we needed skins for growth. Well, all those arguments now apply to this, and it is so much better for the industry and so much better for the ecosystem. So yes, this is a very, very good thing as I see it. I think it's going to take a while till we know exactly how it's all going to work for esports. Sports stuff's going to fall in line first and foremost. But we're now in that conversation. And I think it was DraftKings have announced, yep, we're coming back. We're going to be offering betting. They already have tenure within esports. They've already sponsored esports organizations. They've already done esports fantasy betting. They've already sponsored content creators. So when they come back, we all know why they had to go away. When they come back, it's going to be awesome. Again, the money is going to start pouring into the scene, and I think it's going to be going to the right place, not just these weird little franchise fantasy land things that are going on. And yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about it. It was never going to be something that had a massive impact on my life because I live in Nevada, but the idea now that multiple states can come to the party, yeah, this is fucking great. Certainly, we need to be vigilant, make sure that people aren't going to start throwing away the integrity of the game to reap the short-term rewards that will be coming with this. But honestly, everybody, this is a good day. Everybody should feel really good about the future of esports off the back of this announcement. So thank you very much for listening to my thoughts on it. I'm sure you might have some differing opinions. Stick them down below. Stick them on Reddit, wherever you want to stick them. You can certainly stick them. And I'll see you on the next video.